This presentation is a follow-up to my Agile Data Warehouse Design with Biml presentation. I'm going to show you how to add dimensions and facts to our metadata document. So at the end of the previous presentation, which I happened to give at SQL Saturday Indianapolis, we had this as our primary star. We had fact, sales order, detail, and it was surrounded by dimensions such as date, employee, product, category, and customer. Because of a lack of time, you only have an hour to do these presentations. It's more of a magic show. I show you that it works, and then I let you go through the code to learn how it works. In this case, I'm going to go and show you how to add a table directly, which will give you a shorter path to learn this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from this star to this one, where we add dim supplier, and we add the supplier key to fact, sales order, detail, basically making it a robust star. The way I do my frameworks, the way I do Agile data warehousing in general, this happens a lot. I start out with maybe 2 or 3 dimensions, then go to a fourth, filling out the other dimensions as I go, adding more columns over time. Okay, so let's go to our demo. All right, so we ended up at the end of the previous presentation with all of our packages that we're loading our 4 dimensions and our 2 fact tables. And I'm not going to run those again. I'm going to delete those packages. Then I'm going to go over to Management Studio, and I'm going to refresh this just so that you can see that we have our tables, dim category, customer, date, employee, and product, our 2 fact tables, but we don't have dim supplier. So there's a couple of different ways that you could fill out this sheet. I'm going to first start and make a copy of the template. And let's go ahead and just put it right before dim customer. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to call it dim supplier. And you'll notice that it changed the name of changed the table name up here as well. And there's a couple of different ways that I could fill this out. I could go down here and start typing stuff in. Supplier ID, I think that's an integer. I know that one has to be the business key. I could fill this out manually, or I could provide a query to sniff. In this case, I'm going to use this query, which I showed in the previous demo. And I gave it the query that I wanted to use for dim supplier. When I run that, the results are already down at the bottom. Whoops, I did something wrong. When I run that, I get this grid. This grid right here is all the columns that I specified. They've all defaulted to type 1 unless they're the business key. The business key is detected because it's the primary key of the source query. And I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to paste it in right there. I could have told it to default these all to type 2. Doesn't matter. I'm going to go in here now and choose type 2 for the address portion of it. I'm going to assume that the rest of it should be a type 1 and therefore should update in place. These are all part of the view. Remember that this creates user views over everything. So if you wanted to hide one of these columns from the general user view, you could do it here. And remember that all of these columns over here are optional. I like to fill them in. So when I go over to dim customer, I like to have them filled in. Customers like to see them, but they're not necessary for the framework to work. I just went over there and copied Northwind and DBO. So just to show you how easy this is to fill in. It's a supplier, and I know they're all from supplier. And I know from doing the query myself that they are all same as the column name with only a couple of exceptions. I know that this one comes from company name and that this one was just called region. But as I said, you could write any words over here that you want. It doesn't really make a difference. Now I'm going to go over here and tell it, yes, I'm ready to start processing this table. The other thing I'm going to do is now that I have the dimension, I need to go over to fact sales order detail and add the column to pull in for the key so they will join to get the surrogate key. Now, one of the things that I'm not sure that I stressed in the presentation I gave is how easy this sheet is to fill out. You'll notice that although in my frameworks I always use key, the suffix key for any of my surrogate keys, they're not actually necessary for the sheet. So this one says customer key, and you'll notice that I didn't fill out the data type, the precision or length, the scale, any of this stuff. I didn't need to. I simply called it customer key, and it will go looking through my dimensions for a column called customer key, dim customer. In this case, all I did was tell it I want the product. And it knows that if I've given it something without the suffix key, it adds that to it to do its lookup. When I'm sharing these with business people, they don't want to see key here. They want to see what the subject is, what the dimensional subject is that's being brought in, product. It just makes it easier for them to work with. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to insert blank row, and I'm just going to cheat and say, you know what, I copy this one and then fix it right here. And I know that for supplier, it would be supplier key, but I'm just going to put in supplier. And it ends up, I don't have to put in the data types. I'll go over here to here and I will type in supplier and supplier ID. Once again, these are not necessary. They're just for documentation. So I'm going to hit save. Now I'm going to go back to my my Visual Studio project. And I'm going to, since this is the first step, I'm going to generate the tables that I need. I highlight anything that has a 1 in it. And I hit generate packages. Do not forget when you do this to save this file. When it goes and pulls the metadata from this file, if you haven't saved it, it pulls the one that's on disk, which would not have supplier in it. Okay, and it created that package. Now the package is long, so I'm going to just run it and show you what it did. So if I go back over to Northwind DW and I just refresh the tables, you will notice that there is no dim supplier in here. Okay, now when I run this, and it goes and it goes and it goes, and it is done. Okay, close. Let's get rid of that. And now you can see that I have added dim supplier, both the destination table and the interim, the temporary staging table to my model. I'm also going to go back to the store procedures in Northwind and show you that it created dim supplier. And it also created the changes in fact sales order detail that we specified. But let's look at dim supplier. We'll click on here and go modify. And you'll see that it creates a null-based store procedure. It does this so that you can build your packages and run them without first having this information or this source query actually filled out. It won't move any records, but it will run and not throw an error. So what I would do is I would go in here and say, okay, well, so I mean, that's from dbo.suppliers s, and I would probably change this so it starts returning data, 1 equals 1. And then I would go in here and just put these in. Well, that's s dot supplier ID. And I would go down through all of this. So that I don't bore you, I'm just going to jump ahead and put this in, which is filled out right here. Company name, supplier name, contact name, all this stuff is in here. Good. And then I run this. And when it runs successfully, we will now get data to come out when it loads dim supplier. Let's go back over here and we will alter the sales order detail because it doesn't have a column in it yet for suppliers. So what I would do is I would literally go, all right, well, suppliers S, and I would say, you know, inner join DBO suppliers S on S dash supplier ID. I would literally fill this out, or and then I would go in and put that column up in the top, or I would just go over here and cheat because I've already filled this out. I've already figured this out. So right here, good, right there. Okay. So I have done my deployment. I have done the deployment package. I have changed my metadata. I have saved all of this. I am now going to load it. So I'm going to highlight everything that has a 2. So that means I take out this one, dependency analysis, and I ignore the looping merge one. And I'm going to hit generate. It's going to expand. Good. It expanded. And you'll notice here that it's now loading DIM supplier. Okay. Now I'm going to run this. Let that run. While it's doing that, I'm going to go back over to my select queries, and I'm going to look at DEM supplier, and it's now populated. And then this is an altered query from above for the fact sales order detail join that includes the supplier information. And then when I do that, I run this one, the supplier name and the supplier country of origin is now specified. And it's completely done. Good, good, good. Stop. Close all. And now we have another version of our data warehouse, our dimensional model that includes suppliers and the join to fact sales order detail. If I had more fact tables that needed supplier information joined to them, then I would alter those queries. And there is peace in the valley. When you use this kind of framework, you can iterate ridiculously fast and therefore be completely flexible in how you do it and still provide value. If you need any assistance or would like any help, that's my contact information. And thank you for taking the time to watch.